Hello, everyone. We're very happy to have you with us this evening or afternoon, as the case may be, to talk about one of my favorite subjects, two of my favorite subjects, France and the law. My name is Becky Young, and I manage the business immigration practice at Grossman, Young and Hammond, which is an immigration law firm in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm coming to you today from Toulouse, and I apologize in advance if the Wi-Fi cuts out. I am in a hotel and it's a little iffy here, but hopefully it will stay with us for the duration of this talk. So I'm very excited to be here with three of my colleagues, Aurore, Nadia, and Arthur. They are French lawyers who are based here in Toulouse, and they're correspondent attorneys for our law firm. So first, a few housekeeping matters. We are going to proceed in English today. All three of our correspondent attorneys are French and completely bilingual, so they can definitely speak to you in French if that's something that you prefer, but today we're going to proceed in English. We did collect questions in advance of the webinar, so we will not be taking questions live, but we'll do our best to address the questions that were submitted in advance. I do want to say that this is not legal advice, so please take anything you hear with a grain of salt. We'll do our best to give you general information about the law, but if you do need specific legal advice, we would ask you to schedule a consultation. And if you find this format helpful and you're interested, we'd be happy to do it again in the future. So let's see. Our law firm, Grossman, Young and Hammond, has had close ties to France for quite some time, and we've always had a lot of French clients. I think people find that surprising when they hear about immigration law in the US. They don't necessarily think that a lot of the clients come from France, but that has been a unique aspect of our law firm. And part of that may be because we represent a lot of high-end French restaurants, which is actually how we were introduced to Aurore, who came to us through one of our French restaurant clients, Daniel Beloud, probably at this point about 6 years ago. So we've been working together all of that time, and we're really happy that Aurore has now assembled this group of attorneys for us in Toulouse to assist our clients who want to live and work in France. Our law firm practices both inbound US and outbound or global immigration law. And as the situation has become more, let's say, turbulent in the United States, we've had an increase in requests for outbound immigration, and that includes requests for people who want to live and work or become a citizen even sometimes in France. So that was the reason that we created this webinar. And I'm going to start off by asking each of our correspondent attorneys to introduce themselves, and then we'll go around and answer some questions. So Aurore, let's start with you, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Thank you, Becky. Hello, everyone. My name is Aurore Le Roy de la Chohiniere. I am a French attorney, and I mainly practice civil law at a law firm called CLF, which is based in Toulouse. And before that, as Becky mentioned earlier, I spent over 6 years working with Grossman, Young and Hammond, including 2 years on site in Washington, D.C. During that time, I worked closely with Becky and her team on a variety of cases, immigration cases. Mainly, they were family reunification and employment visas. So I am well aware of difficulties that might arise when it comes to becoming an expatriate, and I was an expatriate myself for 2 years. So during that time, I had the opportunity to work with many different people from many different countries and industries, from, let's say, hospitality to IT. And now I am back in France, so I primarily focus on French civil law and French commercial law. My areas of practice might not directly match your immediate needs, that's for sure. But however, if you encounter legal issues once you're in France, I might be able to assist you. More specifically, I handle commercial advisory work, such as drafting general terms and conditions, leases, and user agreements. I also manage debt collection cases, commercial contract disputes of all types, and out of court settlements. In addition to that commercial area, I also work on civil litigation cases, including contract disputes, again, of any type, all types, from insurance matters to personal injury and professional liability cases. And I also have a background in international law. So if you have questions about which country has jurisdiction over your case or which law would apply, I might be able to assist you as well. I do not do it personally, but my current firm also deals with real estate matters, construction law, and condominium and property management issues. So if you need help in any of these areas, feel free to reach out. And in the case, if your issue falls outside of my field of expertise, like, let's say, I don't wish it to you, but criminal law, I'd be more than happy to refer you to trusted colleagues. And with that, I now turn it over to Arthur for his introduction.
Thank you, Aurore. And actually, Arthur, one point that we should probably clarify before you introduce yourself, which was novel to me as an American, but French. So all three of these lawyers are affiliated with French law firms. So they have colleagues actually who can assist in, a broader range of areas, perhaps, but they're also connected to our law firm. So it's just a unique way that the lawyers and law firms operate in France, which is a little bit different from the United States, but they may each mention their law firm. So just wanted to be sure that we're clear on that point. And with that, Arthur, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. So hi everyone, and thank you for being here. As Aurore, I also have a background in international law and European law, not related to companies, but more to physical persons. And I passed the bar in 2022 as well. I worked in immigration law mainly, and I keep working in French immigration law mainly, but I as well do nationality law, and more generally, I really like to keep a general ability. And despite specializing myself into some specific areas, I also keep a general ability in administrative law. So I can assist clients from other countries in different sort of cases, as for residency permits, family reunification, and as well to obtain national French citizenship through naturalization, which is the kind of the most complex situation, but as well based on different situations linked to residency, to the place you were born, or your parents' nationality. So I as well, as I said, try to keep an ability on all sorts of administrative disputes, and I as well try to help my clients on vices, which is a very specific question in French law. So I always try to, in my practice, to find a solution, even if it's an original one. And yeah, I can assist you in all this kind of areas, and I will be very happy to hear from you if it's necessary. I will now leave the word to Nadia.
Thank you to all. Hi everyone, I'm Nadia Abada. I'm a French attorney at law affiliated to the Toulouse Bar Association, like Aurore and Arthur. So I started doing general taxation in France, corporate taxation especially. And then I specialized in international taxation related to global mobility issues. So people coming to France or people moving from France. So I am working in a law firm in France, dealing with these issues, social security coordination as well, in order to have like a good condition with regarding the taxation, to be compliant with both laws. So now I can assist you with litigation law, especially tax litigation, and also French tax return. We are doing a lot of French tax return, and it's complicated for people coming to France at first. There's a lot of tax formalities as well in France, so I can assist you, sorry, with that. I do a lot of tax filing, and I can give you some consultation regarding tax issue you may have in France, and interpretation you may have regarding tax treaties that can be difficult at first, and to avoid as well double taxation if you are a US citizen, for example, or green card citizen. We have a lot of these issues. So don't hesitate to reach out if you want.
Right, thank you very much. So now that we've introduced ourselves, we're going to do some questions and answers. And I'd like to start with a question for Aurore. And this question is about trade. In the United States, trade and tariffs specifically are a big topic on the front page of the newspaper every day. Aurore, are trade relations between the US and the EU governed by any treaties?
So the answer currently is no. Despite the US being the Europeans' largest trade and investment partner, there is currently no dedicated free trade agreement between them. And so we have had the TTIP. This was the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership that were in negotiations and launched in 2013. But they ended without conclusion in 2016, and they were formally closed in 2019. Nevertheless, transatlantic trade benefits from some of the lowest average tariffs in the world, under 3%, and they are regulated by the World Trade Organization rules. But this is the current state, and we do not know yet if the current US presidency will make any changes to that. So we will be on the loop with the presidency. Mm-hmm.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, lots changing every day in the United States with regard to this topic. Arthur, I want to move to you for the next question. And this question was what we were discussing just a few minutes ago. It relates to obtaining French citizenship through a parent. So let's say that my mother was a French citizen born in France. I was born in the United States. Can I get French citizenship through my mother? And does the answer depend on whether my mother is deceased or living? And does the answer depend on whether my mother became a US citizen before my birth or after my birth?
So as long as your mother or your father, it doesn't matter actually, is French, you can obtain French nationality, sorry. And there is no questions about the fact that she became later on during her life an American citizen or somewhere else. The main thing to be cautious about is to know if the parenthood has been established during the minority of the person, and the fact that her mother or his mother is dead has absolutely no consequences about nationality.
Okay, thank you very much. Nadia, I have a question for you about taxation, and this is also one that we discussed a little bit before. So this relates to a US citizen who's considering relocating to France, as many US citizens that we've spoke to recently are considering. And this person has some passive royalty income from real estate in the United States. And they had some questions about how those that income might be taxed in France. So Can you give us some insight on that question?
Yes, of course. So for this question, we will assume that the US citizen will become a French tax resident and will live in France. So under both domestic French law and the US-France tax treaty, he will be considered as a French tax resident. If you go on the tax treaty, this type of income should be qualified as income from real estate. It's, I think, Article 6 of the US-France tax treaty. Even if this income is received through a transparent entity. So this is especially covered by the tax treaty. So under the tax treaty, the states in which the property is located has a right to tax the income derived from this real estate. So this means in this case that the US will have the right to tax. But in France, French tax residents are taxed on their worldwide income. So this means this income will need to be declared. However, to avoid double taxation in the US and in France, the tax treaty prevents a tax credit. So the French tax resident can claim a tax credit in France, which will be equal to the French tax who will be due on this income. So the double taxation will be avoided in this way. So I recommend maybe doing some formalities to prevent this double taxation.
Thank you. I would assume that's probably one of the biggest objectives is avoiding double taxation.
Yes.
Because yeah, paying taxes once is bad enough. We don't want to pay them twice. Okay, Aurore, next question is for you. So in an international contract between a French company and American company, what's the most sensitive issue? What area of contract performance is most likely to cause conflicts?
I'd say in my experience and as a popular opinion, payment terms are the most sensitive issue in international contracts, particularly due to differences in banking practices and with currencies. So of course, these issues are easy to solve when you think about them before contracting, because after you have contracted, after you have completed the contract and you face litigation, this is when things become complicated. So it's better to, I'd say, find a counsel and review the contract with them to make sure that everything is written properly to the best of your interest. And that being said, force majeure clauses and intellectual property rights are also common sources of conflict, especially when it comes to competitive fields such as intellectual property.
Thank you. And I'm just realizing now a lot of the words that we use in legal English come from French, like force majeure, for example.
Yeah, force majeure and from Latin too. So even the French is derived from Latin. So yeah.
Very cool. Okay, the next question is for Arthur. So I'm a non-European citizen holding a visa from another European country. So I guess maybe that non-European citizen, so I'm a US citizen, but I hold a visa from, let's say, Spain. Can I come to France and settle down?
Well, if you hold a visa from another country in Europe, you can travel to France and pass the border freely, but you cannot settle down for longer than 3 months, actually. You have to, when you do so, you have to declare your presence in France, and you have to be very cautious about that because we have a lot of clients actually that do so by getting a visa from Spain, instance, or Hungary as well. And comes then to France, settle down, and believing they are free to stay in France, but they are actually not. and we have a lot of difficulty afterwards to get a proper administrative situation for them. So you have to be very cautious about that, and it's very important to be cautious from where you arrive in Europe, and as well to declare your residency in France.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Nadia, the next question is for you, and before we get to that question, there's a clarification on your last response. You mentioned a transparent organization. Can you explain what is a transparent
Yeah.
organization?
Sorry, it's a French term. I thought it would be, it's like a see-through entity. I don't know the term
Pass-through, maybe.
Pass-through, maybe. Yeah, I
Pass-through.
don't know the term in English. Sorry.
Okay. All right, thank you. So the next question is, what are the biggest differences between tax obligations of individuals in France and the US?
So even though there is a double tax treaty between the US and France that deals with the conflict of residence, the criteria of residence in both states are really different. So the US, like China as well, taxes by nationality. So that means that US citizens and green card holders are subject to tax on their worldwide income in the US, even though they don't live in the US. While in France, this is more classic. France taxes by residence. So if you live with your family permanently in France, you will be taxed on your worldwide income. So if you are French living in the US, no issues with your taxation. So this is the main difference. So this means that a US citizen coming to France will be considered as a tax resident in both states. So this will lead to the same issue, double taxation.
All right, very good. That seems to keep cropping up. The next question is for Aurore. So this question is, what is the impact of EU law on French law regarding international commercial contracts?
That is a very broad question, so I cannot go into details, but that impact is, I'd say, significant because French law nowadays is heavily influenced by European Union law, particularly concerning consumer protection, competition, and as I mentioned earlier, intellectual property rights. So, for instance, the General Data Protection Regulation that you may know as the GDPR imposes obligations on French companies when processing European citizens' personal data, even if the contracting parties are based in another country, for instance, the US. So the GDPR applies to US companies if they offer goods or services to European citizens, so French citizens, or if they even just monitor their behavior by collecting data or doing marketing. So yeah, the impact is significant. And this means that a US company must comply, in that example, with data protection rules when interacting with consumers or business partners that are based in France or elsewhere in the EU. They don't need to be French or European citizens. As long as the individuals and the companies are based in the EU, you are subjected to European law.
Okay, merci.
Sure.
Arthur, the next question is for you. And I believe this question relates to someone who has a visa from France. So the last question was about somebody with a visa from another European country. This question says, the visa I hold is a short-term visa, less than 90 days. I'm currently working and want to settle down in France. Can I do that?
Well, it's difficult to answer just this way without knowing more in details the situation of the person asking this question. However, when you hold a visa a short-term visa, so less than 90 days, Mostly the answer will be in principle no, because most of the cards of the residency permits in France require specifically to hold a long-term visa. However, there is sort of an alternative situation which relies on regularization, visas, but it's not a perfect solution because it leaves a long span appreciation to the administration, and of course this is to avoid as much as possible, but it can in some cases let the person even if she already lives in France to ask for a long-term visa and then to ask for residency permits. But more concretely, you do both the demands in the same at the same time, and it's way more complicated than holding a long-term visa before arriving in France. But yeah, there is sort of a solution, but it complicates the case.
Understood. Thank you very much. Nadia, the next question is for you. And actually, I'm going to give a little input on this question. So the question says, if a person works 100% remotely in the US for a French employer, where will their salaries be taxed? And so I want to, before you give the tax answer, I want to say that this is actually always a tricky question from a US immigration law perspective, because technically in the US, if you're doing work on US soil, you should have permission from US immigration to do that work. It can sometimes be hard to get that permission if you're working remotely for a company that is in Europe or anywhere outside the United States. So this is a fact pattern that we see a lot. There's not often a good answer under US immigration law. It's kind of a gray area. It's kind of tricky. So I just want people to be aware of the immigration implications of this question. But Nadia, how about the tax implications? Where will that person's salary be taxed?
Yes. So if person works remotely fully in the US, we will assume that this person is a US resident under tax purposes. So we need to go back to the double tax treaty between France and the US. So under this treaty, and I think it's Article 15, the salaries are taxed in the place where the work is performed. So if a person works fully remotely in the US, they work in the US, so in the US soil. So this income will be taxable in the US. However, we need to, I think, process a point. Any professional travel in France, so in the place where the employer is settled, the income derives from the work performed in French soil will be taxable in France. So even if the person is not a French tax resident, it will be taxable. It will be taxed on in his income in France. So it can also lead to double taxation, but it can be avoided by the double tax treaty and the double taxation elimination on the tax return in the US.
Okay, thank you. And we have two more questions. Actually, one is for Nadia and one is for Arthur. Nadia, I'm going to ask you to answer the next question, and then we'll finish with Arthur. So the next question is, how do inheritance taxes differ between France and the United States?
I think there are many differences regarding the inheritance taxes, more than the income taxes. So in France, the inheritance taxes are really special, because the taxation is based on the link and the familial relationship between the heir and the deceased. So this means that close relatives, like children, spouse, face higher exemption and lower tax rates, while more distant relative, like a cousin maybe or friends, are facing higher rates. So the rates between strangers, so no people are not connected or not linked by familial link, face a 60% taxation on their on the income that is given by the deceased. So I know that this is really different from the US. I think there are no federal inheritance tax, and the taxation depends more on the amount of the estates, really. And I know some states have a limit. I think over 12 million of dollars there is a taxation, and below there are not. So it's really different on this point.
Okay, very interesting and important for those who might be interested in moving to France. Okay, so final question is for Arthur, and I hope I got this one right. So the question is, as a US citizen, do I need a visa to come to France? I'm a US citizen and I'm in France now. So Arthur, tell me if I did this right. What's the answer to this question?
Well, there is a way to you can travel into France. There is a specific law about American citizens, which allows you to come to France for a visit. But if you want to stay for longer, once again, you have to ask before for a long-term visa. And it's important to be cautious about that, because you always have to prove when you ask for a residency permit that you entered in France regularly, and even more to ask for a long-term visa. So even if it seems a way better situation, and it actually is, but it can lead to some mistakes for some Americans who forgot about asking and declaring their entrance in French territory, and then we have to prove that they entered the right way, and sometimes it can be difficult. So we have to be very cautious about that, and you have as well to be very cautious about staying for not longer than 3 months, because afterwards it's complicated to ask for a long-term residency permit.
Very good. All right, I'll try not to stay longer than 3 months, even though it's awfully tempting. Well, that concludes our Q&A, and that concludes our webinar. So although, in this particular format, we can't give you specific legal advice, I hope that this Q&A has helped answer some of your questions about French law, and we will disseminate the presentation to everyone who signed up. So that presentation includes all of our direct contacts. You should feel free, if you have further questions or you want to consult about any of these issues, feel free to reach out to any one of the 4 of us directly, and we will be happy, if there are more questions in the future, to do another webinar like this. So I guess I would say bonne journée, bonne soirée, and we hope that this was helpful to you. Have a great one. Bye-bye.